So hello everybody and welcome to today's video. And in today's video, we've got a bale of silage on a JCB. The sky is very black over there. So we are down with our heifers. We're feeding them silage. I've made that quite clear in previous videos that we're feeding animals outdoors. But I hate to waffle on about it, but at the end of the day, it's now a daily chore of mine. Because actually, when I first started feeding these heifers, one bale lasted them like 4 or 5 days. Now, I'm feeding them every day. So I'll just get this gate untied. It's only tied with string. There we go. I'll have to just drop the fence wire. And then we'll get that bale in this field, hopefully, without these running out, because that would be a complete nightmare. Although, there is actually that little grass in that field, they'd probably run back because they'd be like, oh, I want that bale of silage. So yeah, we'll just drop this wire and get these heifers fed. Because we're now feeding, like I say, I think we're feeding them every day. So every night after milking, I'm coming down here with a bale of silage and feeding these. They're having corn as well, by the way. So there's corn troughs there. It is actually very wet around this gateway. But yeah, let's get in the field and then we'll have a little catch up on things, shall we say. Just see here, they're trying to pick the silage off the bale. So come on. Come on, girls. I'm not trying to run you over, I just want you to move out of the way. Come on. Right, so one of the problems I've got at the minute is, because it's rained, the ground is getting a bit wet. I mean, it will take a lot more rain. But they're poaching round the feeder a bit. Field, and well, to be honest with you, they've actually destroyed one side of it. You'll see in a minute there's a sheet off the bottom that they've ripped off. It's not the end of the world. I don't think it's going to cause much problems that they've done that, because at the end of the day it were quite an old ring that I gave them. But I'll just put the camera around now and you can see what they're doing to the ring. So you can see they've poached all the ground up. So what I'll just do is I'll just put this bale down here, like so. Try and do it one-handed as well, by the way. And I'll just come over here and I'll just pick the ring up, because there's nothing left in it. You can see where they've ripped past the metal sheet off the bottom. And I'll just move it and put it over here on a fresh bit of ground. While I'm doing that, they're destroying the bale. Go on, just try and scare them a bit, get them away from the bale. Because the spines, you have to be really careful that you don't end up, when animals shooting and piercing itself on a spine, because that would be a disaster. But I've picked this bale up actually a bit wonky. So you can see I've all got it all on one side, the spines aren't in the middle. It's not the end of the world, because I'm only taking it to the feeder, which is here. So I'll just cut this net off now, and I'll drop it in. Right, so we've dropped the bale in. they're eating that. But they're definitely munching on that bale now. They really want this silage. There's very little grass down here growing for them. It's just really non-existent now. So, like I say, we've actually had rain. So we've had quite a bit of rain really in the past few days. Well, past week even. Today's the 3rd of September. So we're now feeding these every day. The grass has greened up a bit, don't get me wrong, but the fields have greened up a bit. Just take my word for it, the fields have greened up. But the grass isn't going to start growing instantly like that. So we had like 2 or 3 weeks in August where we didn't get any rain, and that's added on to the effect of the drought that we've had during the summer. Well, it's carried on the effect, if that makes sense, and made grass virtually stop growing, which is definitely not a good thing. That's why we're having to feed these. Milk cows are getting fed. We'll talk about that in another video about what's happened there. But me and Izzy are actually off tonight, and we're going to go and have a look at where our water supply comes from. So that's going to give a good indication of what the weather's been like during the summer. So I had a comment on a video a while ago talking about the drought and how we were short of silage and whatever. Someone said, oh, it's not that bad, your fields are doing somewhat. Yeah, there were comments saying something like that, your fields aren't that bad, it's a nutritional problem, we've got it a lot worse. And I'm not saying that you haven't, because some people have got it a lot worse. Well, I'm quite fortunate that I've actually managed to do a second cut. Some people haven't even managed that. And the fact that we've now actually had some rain, even though it's not raining right now, tells us that, you know, I'm not as bad off as some people. It's still bad, but it's not quite bad. So our mains water comes from, I think there's 3 reservoirs. Not so, they're about half an hour's drive from here, half an hour, 45 minutes. So me and Izzy are going to go and have a look at that. So we're going to go and have a look at that. I'm going to take my drone with me. We'll shoot that up, and we'll have a nosy to see what's happening. You know, see how low the reservoir is, because I've seen pictures on Facebook and saying how low it is. And actually, it'll be a bit of an adventure really, because actually it's there's actually like a lost town under there. I think there's 2 lost towns. No, not towns, villages. Sorry, get it right, William. So there's 2 villages that were drowned in the making of the reservoir. One was called the village Derwent. So the valley there is actually called the Derwent Valley. And actually the dam further up the stream is what that's holding back one of the reservoirs is the Derwent Dam. So there's a lost village under there called the Derwent, and then there's another village further down in the reservoir, which, as far as I'm aware, that never comes out of the reservoir. So the village Derwent, when the reservoir drops, you can actually see the remains of the village. And there's actually a water, is it called a water pump house or something, what was originally in the village. Actually, that's one of the first things you'll see when we get there, because that's actually one of the last buildings that's actually intact. But when they built the reservoir, they actually left the church intact. So when the reservoir rose up, it dropped to a certain level, you could see the spire of the church sticking out of the reservoir. But after so many years, this was back in the 1940, I think, late 1930s, that the reservoir was built. I think the church was demolished in about 1947, so a few years later, because when the reservoir dropped, people were going wandering around the church. So, but you'll see from the clips where we can see the reminiscence of what were buildings under that reservoir. But like I said, there were another village further down. That's under the. If anyone knows where the Lady Bower Reservoir is, that's actually where we're going. There's another village further down called Ashipton that was drowned. That's where the viaduct is for Snake Pass. So if anyone knows where that is, that is where we're going, and actually I don't think that village actually ever comes out of the water. But they say when the reservoir gets down to where the pump house is, which as far as I'm aware that's out of the water right now, well, when it starts showing out the water, the reservoir is about 49% full, so it's down from where it should be. But we'll talk about that. I'll do a voiceover, I think, on the video, so I'll try and I'll shoot the drone up. Instead of putting music over the top of the drone footage, I'll do a little voiceover so you can probably see the extent of what of the reservoir, because it, as far as I'm aware, it is really, really down, and that is a good indication on how dry we've had it this summer, because I think it peaked where it was full back in end of February, and there's actually plug holes further down. We're not going to go to where the plug holes are, where the Lady Bower Dam is, and there's plug holes, so when the reservoir is so full, the water runs down the plug holes into the overflow and back down into the river. But we're not going there. But that was the last time it was full, so that stops it from getting too full, if that makes sense. But as far as I'm aware, I think there's 3 reservoirs there. There's a Lady Bower Dam, there's a Derwent Dam, which when that's full, the water runs over the front of it, rather than it doesn't have plug holes. And then there's Howden Reservoir, I think that's further up. We're not going to go there, we're going to go where the village Derwent was. Yeah, I think there's like, there's not only there's a pump house, I think there's like gate posts still there from what fields that were that were drowned in the making of the reservoir. But I'm doing this, it's a bit of something different really, just so that you can get a bit of perspective on actually how dry it's been this summer, because I think 2022 and 2018 was 2 really dry years, probably not just as bad as this, but that's when the reservoir got really low again, and I think the whole of the pump house was showing out the reservoir then. At the minute, as far as I'm aware, it's only the roof that's just popping out of the water. So yeah, but just a bit of a safety concern. Anyone that does fancy going and having a look at any reservoirs, don't go swimming in them, don't do anything you shouldn't do, keep away from them. But they're open to the public, and they are like, most of them are like nature reserves, so the area around them's like nature friendly, but that does not mean go and start going in the water. I think there are fish in the reservoir, in Lady Bower Reservoir. I'm sure there's fish, so there are fishing boats that go out there. I think, I might be wrong, but anyway, I'll leave it here. If I don't do an outro to this, remember to go subscribe and follow and like the video, and yeah, hopefully you enjoy us going and having a look at the reservoir. Right, so me and Izzy have just come to have a look at where our mains water comes from, so we can see the extent of the drought we have been in. Haven't we, my love?
Yeah, and we brought the dog as well.
We brought the dog and a drone, so we can actually have a look, or shoot the drone up and have a nose.
Send it out to sea.
Send it out to sea. Hopefully it doesn't fall and drown.
Yeah.
That would be a bit of a disaster. But one thing we have just noticed is there is a building there. So you'll be able to see this is actually the lost village of Derwent under this reservoir. So we'll shoot the drone up and have a look, see what else we can find. Right, so here you can see we're at the top end of the reservoir. There's a viaduct in front of us. So you can see where it all to the right of the camera, that's all you can see where the reservoir is when it's full. So there's only a stream down the middle of it now. That reservoir, I think, has a water pipe or a pipe of some sort. The viaduct, rather, has a pipe running across the top. Now here we are, a different image. This is running up toward the Derwent Dam. So this is the Derwent Dam up there, holding back more water. So this is the dam that where the water runs over the top when it's full, but as you can see, it's nowhere near full. But yeah, you can see there's 2 towers at either side, and yeah, that is the Derwent Dam. You can see there's quite a lot of water it's holding back. So the water runs out of this into the reservoir we're stood in now. So we're going back along where the viaduct is now. So right to the left of the camera, you can see there's the remains of a building. If you just make it out there, you can see the footings, the stone, just above where the water sat now. That was a building. If we go further downstream, there was the reminiscence of more buildings further down. Well, you can see this is where the reservoir runs into, so there's a lot more water down this end. So it's always it's lower at the top than the bottom. But this, where we are now, this is actually where the village Derwent was. So it's still quite. I think, if I remember right, when the water's about the level it is now, it's about 49% full, roughly. But you can see where the old pump house is right in front of us. So you can see to the left, to the right of the camera, that's where I'm stood. Me and Izzy are stood there. And this is what was the pump house, I think. So the top of it's just showing up out the water. But this is a closer up view of it. So it's still under the water, just the top is just sticking out now. But yeah, that's the only building that's left really, I think. So I think it's about 6 foot deep at the minute. If we go a bit further up here, you can actually see this is where more buildings were. So there's more old walls and remains of buildings. There's old roads. There's a water pipe there. There's a bridge that's actually stuck out there. But yeah, there's a lot of history here. It's actually interesting to know that there was a graveyard here at Derwent Village, and all the bodies had to be exhumed and buried elsewhere when they made the dam, made the reservoir. But there's some gateposts found stuck up out the water. Well, they're not in the water anymore, but this would have been the reminiscence of a field. You can see it's actually greening up because it's actually been that dry. So we'll go a bit further down. So this is heading more towards the Lady Bower Dam is further down here. But like I said earlier, there's another village submerged further down, the village of Ashipton, as far as I'm aware. If anyone wants to correct me if I'm wrong. Right, so here we found an old wall of some sort built into the ground. The water would normally cover this, and there's an old fence there of some sort that's been under the reservoir. Another old wall just there. So there's like an opening of some water held further upstream. This would have been probably a river of some sort. So back down to the main reservoir. Now this is the main reservoir. You can see how far the water goes up. So there's the banking of the reservoir. So it normally goes up to the top of them bankings. But like I said, I think it's about 6 or 7 foot deep from where that building is that was stuck up, where we could see the whole pump house. And there's the banking on the other side. And then we're heading back up the reservoir now. You can just make out where the pump house is. It's sticking out to the top. Well, it's quite a scenic place here. You can see why they've built a dam here, because of the valley. The way the valley is, it makes a perfect place for a reservoir.